everyone, and welcome again to Jason's in the House. I'm your host, Jason Parisella with Keller Williams Realty right here in Beverly. And our guest today is Jeff Cohen. He is a solar and home energy specialist with Endless Energy. Welcome, Jeff. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Nice to see you again,
nice
Jason.
To see you.
Yeah.
So, hot topic today, I think in a lot of ways, solar energy. So, before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at the company? And
I work for Endless Energy. I started with the company in 2011 when I got solar panels on my house in Salem, and I've benefited from the incentives. In 2014, I was asked by the City of Salem to run the Solarize program, which is a state program that's administered through the city, and it's a great way for people to get a really good deal on solar. And when that ended, that's a 6-month program, I created a 501c3 nonprofit through Salem Alliance for the Environment, which is a group of practical environmentalists. Do a lot of great stuff in the North Shore, and advise people statewide about solar. I was the solar expert for the North Shore Association of Realtors. I do seminars for realtors or anyone who's willing to listen to me. And 2 years ago, I went back to work for Endless Energy. We're a fairly innovative company, and it gave me a chance to keep doing what I really like to do.
Excellent. So there's definitely a tie to solar energy in the real estate market, which is what I do as a realtor. So before we get into that, tell us, first of all, what is solar energy?
So solar energy, the way it works is pretty simple. You have solar panels on a roof or a yard, and the radiation from the sun hits the solar panel, and it turns it into DC electricity. And then, to power the home, you have to convert it to AC. And they use what they call inversion or inverters. And there's multiple different ways to do it. So, for example, this is a smaller version of a solar panel. So the sun would hit the solar panel, and then on the back there would be some kind of wires that would connect to either an inverter behind here or somewhere down by your electric panel, and then it actually powers your home.
Interesting.
You use the power at the house, and when you produce more, it goes back to National Grid, maybe to a neighbor's house or whatever, but it's localized, renewable, clean energy.
Excellent. So if you produce more, what do you mean by it goes back to National Grid?
So on a really bright sunny day at 2 in the afternoon, when you're actually producing more, think of your meter, it starts to go backwards. And that excess energy goes back into the grid. And the cool thing is you get reimbursed at full retail right now, so it creates a credit on your bill. But it's really great because you end up producing your own power on your own property.
So is there a point by which, at some point when you have so much credit with the National Grid that you'll get a check back?
No, they don't pay you. They're not required to pay you anymore. And the best way to think about it is in the spring and the summer, you're going to overproduce. So maybe you produce a couple, $300-400. And then in the winter, when you're underproducing, when you don't get as much sun, maybe there's snow on, but the days are shorter, you use that credit. So the benefit is the solar company will figure out the best way for you to offset, if they can, 100% of your power. But it's kind of like a curve. So you produce more, and then you use that credit for the months or the times where you don't produce enough.
So I just thought of something else too. So now, because I don't know how this ties into solar, where people actually can choose their supplier.
It doesn't really apply to solar.
Does it always go back to does it go back to the supplier, or does it go back to the?
It goes to the company that has the pipe into your house.
Brings the pipe, okay.
So for example,
this is National Grid here.
In Beverly, it's National Grid, just like Salem. And the way it works is if you want a third-party supplier. So in Salem, they have what they call municipal aggregation, where the whole town negotiated a rate with a third party. That's just the energy. But you still get a bill from National Grid.
Right.
So when the power goes back, you still get a credit on your National Grid bill.
So it always goes towards the National Grid portion, which is the transmission lines and bringing the actual.
Well, your bill is from National Grid.
Right.
Whether you get it from a third party, Fred's energy company or whatever.
It just has that little line on there, the supplier.
It's still National Grid.
Yeah.
They do their billing with the third party.
So what percentage, I guess, is in Massachusetts, or even as local as you can get, of homes that it just doesn't work? Or what would trigger, or what would be the criteria where a home just doesn't,
So
not going to be
there
worth it?
are what we call non-feasible homes. That might be because they have a slate roof. They don't want to take the slate off. Their house is covered with trees, so they have too much shading. Maybe the house is facing the wrong direction. You can produce solar on every side but north. And so there's a lot of homes that can't produce enough to cover 100% of their bill. So maybe 50% of the homes in Massachusetts wouldn't be able to achieve 100% offset, but they could still offset something. And if you could offset 50% of your
Cut
bill,
your half, bill in half, yeah.
yeah, and here's the reason that's so good, is because National Grid, Eversource, the for-profit companies, pretty much double their electric bills or rates every 10 years. So if your bill is $150 today, the same amount of power you're using is $300 in 10 years. But if you have your own solar, the $150 today you're offsetting is actually $300. So the financial benefit over time is significant.
And are there restrictions by town on the amount of panels that
No.
you could put on your home?
The only restrictions are the communities that own their own power company, which we have a lot in the North Shore. You know, Marblehead, Danvers, Peabody, Ipswich, Rowley, Georgetown. There's 41 communities in Massachusetts that have their own power company, and they can kind of create their own rules and their own size. And there are some net metering caps, a little bit nuanced, and that's really a legislative issue, where if the cap has been reached by certain companies, they might limit. But most people can put enough solar panels on their roof to offset 100%.
Yeah, I was just wondering, yeah, if there were any restrictions because of people didn't like the look of them or something, so you couldn't, you know, your neighbor says, I don't like the way your solar panels
Can't
look.
really do that, yeah.
So that doesn't come into
No,
play.
and
There's no
panels
zoning
are,
issues or anything like that.
Well, there might be historic,
Yeah.
districts, but in general, there's ways of, it's really the equipment, the conduits, the electric boxes. There are solar panels now that work really great that are black on black, and sometimes you might drive by a house and not realize they have solar panels.
So there's different styles,
Yeah,
different looks.
styles, yeah.
So you mentioned, is it only south that you can put
No,
the
you
panels
can
on
do
everywhere?
south, east, and west.
So the only
Can't do
direction is north that you can't put them on?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. So what about Massachusetts? What's the viability? I mean,
So we have a slide of the United States, and if we could pull that up, and basically the way that it works is that a lot of people think we don't produce enough sun in Massachusetts, but if you look at this slide, the purple country on the right is Germany, and they have less sun than any state in the United States, including Alaska. And we have about the same amount of sun as Galveston, Texas. And
In
we have
Massachusetts.
in Massachusetts. So Germany is covered with solar. We have benefit from it. So there's plenty of sun in Massachusetts.
So why do you pull up, why is Germany on there?
Germany's on there because they are great with renewable energy. And they pay a lot for energy costs. They don't have a lot of oil and stuff like that. So they produce a significant amount of their power. A lot of Portugal, Costa Rica is 100% renewable. So there's a lot of places in Europe that have a little bit further along than we are.
Mm-hmm. And so it looks like also that, what is it, the western part of the state is
Well, the west,
the most viable for solar?
Well, the way it works is the longer the day, the more you're going to be able to produce solar. But believe it or not, solar actually works better in the cold because the molecules are closely together, so when the sun hits it, the panels are more productive. You just happen to have a much shorter day in January or February.
Mm-hmm.
So you're always going to produce more in May and in June.
Okay. And that just brings, I had a couple questions on the panels themselves. How does it work with the panels? And is it, do they change dramatically technology-wise that would cause somebody to have to continue to buy them? Or, for example,
No.
in a car, you might lease a car for 3 years and then you go buy a new car and
I would
technology
recommend
changes
right now is a great time to do solar because the incentives are still very good. So the financial benefit is really great. And the premise is that once you commit to solar, and put it on your roof, you're producing hopefully as much power as you need. And these solar panels have warranties 25, 30 years, and so you are going to be producing really good power for probably your whole life. And so why take something off when you've already paid for something? You own the power, and it's more than enough for your home.
And they probably won't be significantly different 10, 20 years from now?
No,
or
they're basically made out of sand. It's silicone, and yeah, the technology is always going to get a little better, but it's kind of like, it's not the same as like a TV, where an LCD TV a few years ago was $4,000, and now a better TV today costs $400. It's the financial benefit is not going to accelerate with the technology.
So there's no need to really have to replace them. So
No.
once you put them on, you can pretty much use them for.
And this is why I recommend people buy the panels.
Yeah. So that brings up another point, especially too in the real estate market, where you have a house that's being transferred, being sold, and the house has solar panels on it. And as a realtor, we're running into situations where there's a lease on the panels that could causing some confusion. Solar is still new.
So
pretty
there's
much
really
new in this
two
area,
ways
so
you can
it's-
get solar for your property, and one is to lease it or rent it, and the other is to purchase it. And the big difference is this: when you lease solar, a lot of companies say, hey, it's free, and there's no maintenance, but the solar panels have a 25-year warranty. No one puts a 25-year warranty on something that's going to last 2 years. The other thing is you can purchase solar with no money down. The state has a program called the Mass Solar Loan, which encourages people who don't have a lot of taxable income or working class. And a lot of companies like us have financing where you don't put any money down and you own it. The problem with leasing is that you're still paying a bill for the 20 years of the lease. You may not even be able to choose your equipment, so the equipment may not be as good. And I always say to people, would you lease a car for 20 years, okay? And if you're a realtor and you're representing someone who is buying a home and there's lease panels on the roof, you really need to figure out, does it make sense to get something out of that deal? Because, as that lease gets more aged, it's going to be less beneficial. Now,
And even the ins and outs of the lease, you need to hire an attorney just to understand.
the very
I would imagine,
complicated,
the lease.
think
what you
of
really-
a credit card, contract. It might be 8 pages and you can't read it because the fine print. These are 26 to 32 pages, and they have a lot of restrictions. In some cases, they will actually determine whether you can transfer the panels. So
So they may want you to buy out the lease as the seller, or, the owner of the property. Have you heard of cases where
you might have to do that,
owner
and
has
a
to
lot of people do
buy 'em
that
out?
because they're not satisfied with the lease, and it's very costly to buy the panels at that point. And I always say, it's like going and buying a car. Why have one choice? Why not be able to pick the quality of the panels you have? Because in the long term, the better the panels, the more production. It's that better technology we're talking about.
Right.
You can buy them with no money down. There's some really cool incentives. One that a lot of realtors don't know is if you buy panels, there's a 20-year property tax exemption for the value of the panels. So if it costs $30,000, the assessor cannot raise the value of your home to charge you more in property tax.
Oh, I see.
Which is great. There's a 30% federal tax credit. There's net metering, which is this thing we talked about before, where you get credit for any overage that you put in. And there's some things like either rebates or a thing called SREX, which we won't get into the nuance of that, where you can actually make a little bit of money. So you actually will, over the long term, benefit a lot more. I like to say to people that 100% of the incentives, the government incentives, goes to the owner of the system. And why shouldn't you get those?
Right.
And if you can offset your bill, think of this. Your bill is $150 a month, that's $1,800 a year. If you don't put solar panels on your house, in 10 years, for the same amount of usage, you're going to be paying $36,000, almost $4,000.
Right.
But if you get solar panels on today and you own them, in 10 years, when you own the panels, you are going to own, in 10 years, $4,000 of power. It's your power.
Yeah.
It's kind of the American way, I say.
There you go.
Yeah.
So another question I hear too is, what about my roof? Well, my roof's 15 years old and I'm putting solar panels on, they're going to last 25 years or 30 years or whatever the case may be.
The state of
How do you replace your roof?
The state of Massachusetts has some great regulations. They have more regulations for solar than anything else, okay? The safety, a lot of things. One of them is that the solar installer has to put a 5-year workmanship warranty on the installation. That's big. When you get a new roof, you get a 1-year workmanship warranty. The other thing is they require a structural engineer to stamp that the roof can support a certain amount of weight. And that weight is the weight of the solar panels plus a anticipated snow load, they call it. And that's a lot.
That's a good point. The snow on a few years back, I think it was, there was so many, the
Right,
snow
exactly.
kept piling up on the roofs and
Now, panels in general protect the roof because the two worst
does
things for the roof.
the snow slide off more with the panels on?
Well,
or
they'll
is it-
slide off more because the panels have a glass top. These are pretty much indestructible. They have a glass top, there's no moving parts, but the panels are tilted, warm, and glass.
Yeah.
So in many homes you look and the only place there's no snow. But the other problem with a roof is the heat in the summer. And the panels insulate the roof. So here's a cool thing, Jason. When you buy solar panels, we're going to send someone, or the solar company is going to send someone, if you decide you want to go forward, what they call a site visit, where someone will get on the roof and look at the spacing of the rafters and the quality of the shingles and everything else. And it doesn't matter how old the roof is. Some really old roofs are really great. But if you need to fix your roof or get a new roof or maybe upgrade your electric in anticipation of solar, you can apply the tax credit, the 30%, to the roof job that you're also applying to the solar job.
So if you have to replace your roof or any repairs, that cost of the roof will be added to the
You can
entire
do that.
cost of
You
the-
can bundle it together. You could do, have your own roofer do it. But the advantage is, if you're going to need to get a new roof anyway, you get the roof done, you get the solar panels done, you apply the tax credit. The roof warranty is about the same as the solar panel warranty.
Right. Well, that's what I would think, is it would make sense that you'd want to really do the roof at the same time you put the panels on, unless
Absolutely.
it's, maybe within 10 or less years old.
Yeah.
But to have the warranties the same and everything, and the age I would think would make sense.
Exactly.
So what happens if somebody doesn't do that and their roof, for whatever reason, even if it's a new roof and the roof leaks?
Well,
Nothing to do with the solar panels, just there's a problem?
Well,
and-
they're on racks. You're going to want the solar company to come and take them off the racks. And, depending on what size, I mean, if you have to take all the panels off, it's going to cost more. But you're probably going to pay them an hourly amount or a negotiated amount.
Do you have to take all the racks off?
You probably don't. It depends on what the issue is.
Right.
And if you can find it. But it's another reason to, not only for realtors, but people to think about purchasing solar versus leasing it, because the lease company has less of a reason to come back and do this switching of stuff. And the bottom line is when you transfer, if you own the panels, you can transfer all the incentives to the new owner. And it's really cool if you're representing someone who has a home that, and you're going to buy, that client of yours as a realtor is going to buy a home that has purchase panels on it. The house is worth more. You can actually tell the buyer, hey, you're going to get $150, $200 of electricity.
Right.
I mean,
And to me, it's a selling point.
and if some of the incentives are there, you can transfer those.
Right.
So it's really cool. And there's really no maintenance on solar panels. So.
Yeah, it sounds like, as you mentioned, they're indestructible and nothing really happens to them.
Yeah, I mean, something could happen to them.
So if
but
you
it's
own
very
them, you
rare.
get the solar company to come back and they just charge you to
What
do
they
a
do.
repair?
I mean,
They're under warranty as well, though.
We've replaced, yeah, they're under warranty, but there's no moving parts, so they tend not to go bad. We've replaced very, very few panels. Most solar companies never replace panels, but something could happen.
Mm-hmm.
A kid could throw a rock on it, and that would probably be on your homeowners. But you should think about this being a really long-term investment.
So these solar companies, where are they getting their panels? Or are they their own manufacturer of the panel? For example, your company, or are you buying them from?
Well, most
another
companies get them.
manufacturer?
There's a whole bunch of solar panels out there, and they're all different levels. if you lease or rent solar panels, you're probably not going to get a great panel. I say the better the equipment, the more power you're producing per square foot. Our company, for example, we buy panels from a company in Korea, another company in Canada. We do make our own panels, and they actually have a very long warranty, a little bit longer than most. And a lot of it is the price per watt that you're paying. And this is whoever comes to the house and gives you the estimate should go over those kind of considerations. And a lot of people are now getting panels because of how they look.
Yeah. No, you made a good point earlier with that, to hide them and to have a more of a sleek look that.
Yeah, they look cool. I mean,
noticeable.
I've had panels since 2011. I have the kind of the old blue with aluminum solar panels, and I'm in the industry. I've really realized some significant financial benefits. I'm going to make a 25% return on my investment.
Wow.
And that's pretty cool. Imagine buying an appliance and getting paid to have your dishwasher go, turn your dishwasher on. And so I've realized that, but a lot of people now like the black on black look.
Yeah.
I'm sure someday they'll have lavender panels or something or whatever to go with your roof. And, they're going to have shingles at some point and things like that. But, yeah, I mean, I think people are really finding them more acceptable. They see more of them in the neighborhood, and there's not as many people who are resistant to the look of solar panels, especially when they realize the benefit to them personally.
Right. And I've seen it myself. I think a lot of people have seen it. You see more and more solar panels on more and more homes. It seems like definitely a trend.
Well, I tell people, a lot of people used to think, I can't afford solar. And then they see someone on their street that has solar. And they're thinking, well, if Fred can do it, why can't I do it?
Right.
And solar is affordable for working class people. It's great for communities to do it. Put them on schools. Think about how much energy a school takes up. A lot of nonprofits. We do churches, synagogues, and other nonprofits. Businesses have really good. They get most of the same incentives, and you can depreciate the solar panels. So a lot of people don't realize this. Let's say you had a multifamily home. You could realize the benefits of offsetting power, but you might be able to depreciate the panels. So it's really got some really great advantages. So commercial is just as good as residential, which isn't always in the real world. If people have a business, they might have to pay more for a commercial loan.
Right.
But in solar, they may actually do as good as or better than they would on putting them on their home.
Yeah. So the tax credits and everything that's happened in the past and what's going to happen in the future, how is that, and I would assume the popularity of solar is going to increase. So is it going to be so-called better for somebody to have solar 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, or are the tax credits going to be gone?
I think the best time is today. And the reason is
the tax credits are not going to last.
Everything is going to go down. As solar, the cost of making the equipment is, just like any electronics, is cheaper and cheaper. So I think it's something to think about. Like right now, there's some really good incentives, and they're going to go away. And right now, the financial incentive is really
This
great.
is from the federal government?
There's federal incentives. There's state incentives.
Are there any local by town incentives, or is it mostly
Only
state?
if you live in those communities that have their own power company,
Yeah.
and they're all different.
So if the incentives go away, do you think the cost of the panel will go down? Or will they go
the
up?
cost of the panels is already going down. It's just right now you've got these tax credits and things that you're not going to have in a few years.
Yeah.
And it's significant.
So where do you see it in 5 or 10 years from now?
Well, I think people are still going to do it. One of the things that we like to do with our company, we're a very innovative company, Endless Energy, and what we do is other things besides solar. So for example, we do deckless mini split heat pumps, which are incredibly efficient. Just like in Germany, they have solar on every house. Everyone's got these things. They do, air conditioning and heat, and they're electric. So think about it. Now everything's connected to the solar panels. So the idea is a zero net energy home. We do the mass save energy audits. Those are great. You can get insulation. You can get great rebates on that, LED light bulbs. But think about it. You make your house more secure, more energy efficient. You use electric appliances that are more efficient than the typical old fossil fuels, oil and gas. And you power them through your own power that you own on your roof. So this is the concept, to create a zero net energy home.
That's definitely a shift. 'Cause, I've known, I've been in real estate for a while now, and when I go to sell a home that has electric heat, it was always
Right.
no, a lot of people would be turned off by electric heat. You're saying, which is huge, if you're your own so-called power company, you almost
You may not
want-
be as resistant. I mean, electric baseboard heat is still very expensive.
right. It's still, but you're offsetting it with your own solar panels.
You are, and
So
you
it's not as bad
supplement
as
it with
was.
some electric-powered, heat pumps or whatever.
Right.
And they're just so efficient right now. The technology is so good. But I mean, I really think of the concept like I can own my own power,
Right.
and I can offset my electric bill and my heating bill with power I own.
Do you run into people, or is there any restrictions on people putting these panels anywhere they want in their home, like for an example in their backyard? I mean, we have very close to here that, I don't remember the name of there's a whole,
Oh yeah, the solar farm behind the high school.
Yeah.
So not
can you
every company does it. We do what they call ground mounts. If you drive on the Mass Pike, you see them. All you need to do there, and we're one of the companies that does it, is you need to just secure. You obviously don't want them to fall over or whatever.
Yeah.
But the advantage to a ground mount, if someone has a barn or a garage, great, might be a great place. It depends on where the sun is. But the advantage to a ground mount or a flat roof is that you can orient the panels and pitch them to the right degree and get them maximize the usage. Now, when you put them on a roof, you pretty much have to pitch the panels the same as the roof, because that's the maximum integrity. So you're kind of at the mercy of the orientation of the house.
Yeah, I mean, there obviously is more flexibility with putting them on the ground in your yard, although you're taking up space. Your roof's already there. You're not walking on your roof or using your roof per se every day. So,
but think if you had a farm, if you drive a little bit north on the North Shore, there's a lot of farms, and you're starting to see these on farms, because this is a way for them. I mean, that's not always an easy thing for them to make money.
Right.
They're dependent on the weather or whatever, but they add some solar panels, all of a sudden now they own their own power.
Yeah.
And they can power the things in the farm that they need to. So, yeah, so I mean, I personally, I helped with the project in Salem where the city is actually not only benefiting by offsetting a bunch of power, but actually some revenue is going into the schools, which is really a great benefit for the future. And the coolest thing is kids today really get the environment. So a lot of people like us, we're going to get solar panels because we not only like the environmental thing, but we're financially benefiting. But kids really get the benefit of making sure the environment's in good shape.
Right.
And so, just personally, I'd like to put solar panels on every building that can handle solar panels,
Excellent. Well, great information. Okay. So how do our viewers contact you if they wanted to learn more about solar or anything else that you offer?
So they can contact me. Our website, we're Endless Energy, is goendlessenergy.com, goendlessenergy.com. People can call me. I have a direct line, and I love to talk to people about how being more efficient can benefit them. I'm at 508-870-9794, and you can contact me through the website or just give me a call.
Excellent. Great information, Jeff.
Thank you so much,
Jason. Great to have you on the show.
Really a pleasure.
And thank you, everyone, again, for watching Jason's in the House. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions for me, you can give me a call at 978-927-6030, or visit my website, which is jasonparisellateam.com. And we'll see you next time. And also, as always, we thank BevCam for all their help. Thank you.